Hope you're having a good day today. It is July 2nd, and we have a scenery change. And for those of you who know how I'm recording these videos, you'll understand why. But it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day. Appreciate you following along with us. Today's reading comes from the book of Proverbs, in Proverbs chapter 25. Our reading today is actually chapter 25, chapters 25 through 29. We're going to be looking in verses 8 through 10 today. Proverbs 25, verse 8. Let's read together. Do not go hastily to court, for what will you do in the end when your neighbor has put you to shame? Debate your case with your neighbor, and do not disclose the secret to another, lest he who hears it expose your shame, and your reputation be ruined. Sometimes we think in what this is in regards to is Matthew 18. If your brother sins against you, go to him. This verse, as we read, debate your case with your neighbor rather than going hastily to court. And I think it speaks to this same idea, that sometimes people disregard the Matthew 18 passage about if your brother sins against you, go to him, speak to him. If he hears you, you've gained your brother. And they think, oh, well, that's the elder's job, or that's someone else's job. That's the preacher's job. But that's not my job. Well, this passage, I think, helps us to think about things a little bit. For one thing, you can tell one of the things that's being spoken about is discretion, and that when matters are private, they should remain as private as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes it won't become public. Again, the Matthew passage, if your brother hears you, you've gained your brother. If he doesn't hear you, you take one or two others, and then if he doesn't hear them, you bring him before the church. And at that point, it's public. It's more public as it progresses. But the way it starts is it starts privately. And I'm going to try not to sneeze because I have to sneeze. Pardon me. So I think our proverb here helps us to understand discretion. And it actually gives some of the reasoning behind it. As it says, don't go hastily to court. What will you do in the end when your neighbor has put you to shame? Debate your case with your neighbor. Do not disclose the secret to another, lest he who hears it expose your shame. What happens if you're wrong? So be discreet, be private, seek reconciliation. If there's something going on, try to get it hammered out, try to get it figured out as privately as possible. And sometimes you may find out that actually you're the one who's wrong. How horrible is it to take someone to court and end up losing the case? Well, sometimes that's what happens. So discretion. What if you're wrong? And then just the idea. It does say do not go hastily. Do not go hastily to court. Mindful of passage in James, be slow to wrath. Right, slow to wrath. Make sure you're using God's word correctly. And these ideas. Wanted to look at a few other passages with you. Look down a little bit in thinking about this idea of slowing down. Look down a little bit, and pardon me, it's a new environment for me too, so I'm trying to figure out where to put things and stuff like that. Look at verse 18. A man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a club, a sword, and a sharp arrow. And actually, I tell you what, we'll just leave the screen right there. But a man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a club, sword, and sharp arrow. What do the three have in common? They all hurt. They all hurt. And we are trying not to hurt. Sometimes words cut deeply. Sometimes words need to cut deeply. Acts chapter 2, cut to the heart. But we don't want to give offense unnecessarily. And so we go slow. back to our passage, verse 17, just another neighbor passage. Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, lest he become weary of you and hate you. So that's something to remember as well. And how about verse 21? If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat, and if he's thirsty, give him water to drink. For so you will heap coals of fire on his head, and the Lord will reward you. You probably know where that's quoted. In the New Testament, I believe it's Romans, and the idea is you're trying to melt them. Someone is being hard-hearted perhaps, and you're trying to melt that hard heart. So a few different verses about neighbors, and remember where we started earlier. Do not go hastily to court. Debate your case with your neighbor. We might think about loving our neighbor, and we might think about just how difficult it would be if when there's tension between neighbors, when there's tension between brethren, when there's tension between those that you're close to. And so rather than exposing it for the world to see, which sometimes, like I said, it may have to happen, Proverbs says, go to them, debate it, be discreet about it. And it gives its reasons. Appreciate you following along with us. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you join us for our next look into God's Word.